The moment we've all been waiting for, really, mostly Greg Pickel has been waiting for. The Big Ten and Penn State wrestling schedule is finally here. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Greg Pickel, our wrestling reporter, is with us on the Penn State Wrestling Show. Where else would we be? Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. As always, if you're watching this on YouTube, please support us by subscribing to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Liking this video really helps us go a long way as we get into the meat of wrestling season. We're going to have a show each week heading into the wrestling season, and of course, then one each week during the year. So we are full wheels on the road, burning rubber, Greg, and we have some news to talk about. So, big news. Where do you want to start with the conversation around the schedule? And first off, how relieved are you that it is now out?
Very happy. I mean, I think I mentioned it last week. I can't remember if it was on air or if it was just to you on the side, but it would just blow my mind that the Big Ten had the Big Ten baseball schedule out before the Big Ten wrestling schedule. And again, I get it. Like there's more shared facility issues in wrestling considering basketball and other sports, so concerts, things like that. So I get it. It may not be the easiest waters to navigate, but I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem to me
like you didn't know it was coming.
Right. Yeah. It's not a surprise to anybody. No. So we do finally have the full 2024-2025 Penn State schedule in terms of dates. The Big Ten is going to release the specific times for Big Ten matches and also any relevant television info at some point over the next couple of weeks. That info came out in mid to late-ish October last year, so I would think we're probably at least a week away from that, if not more. But some of these Penn State matches will end up on TV. We don't know that yet. But let's just get into the first part of the 2024-2025 schedule, T. Frank, which, of course, is the 2024 portion of it. So Penn State will be kicking off its regular season dual meet-wise against Drexel on November 17th. That's a Sunday at 1 p.m. at Rec Hall. A day before, Penn State hosts the NWCA All-Star Classic, which, of course, 6 Nittany Lions will be in. It'll be interesting to me, T. Frank, to see what the Penn State lineup looks like against Drexel in the season opener, considering you're going to have these guys wrestling the night before in matches that are called exhibitions and do not count for season statistics or anything like that, but do play a role in the seeding process when you get to Big Tens and you get to Nationals. And, whether that's written in stone or not, I don't know, but it does. There's just no doubt in my mind. So certainly curious to see if Penn State will have its full contingent ready for Drexel on November 17th. After 6 guys are at the All-Star Classic at Rec Hall on the 16th, but time will tell. Then next up, the following weekend, Penn State goes back to the Army Black Knight Invitational. It's been a frequent visitor to that event up at West Point, so that is how it closes out November. December, a couple of dual matches on the schedule.
Can I just ask you, because I've always been curious of why? Why do they like that? What's the advantage of going to that Army Black Knight Invitational?
Yeah, I think distance is one thing. It's not too far away. It's not like they don't have to drive they don't have to drive an outrageously long time. They don't have to fly there, obviously. So that's one aspect of it, especially with the new redshirt rules and being able to have more guys participate in these things and still keep a year of eligibility. I'm sure there's a cost factor that comes into it from that perspective as well. If guys are going to go unattached, they can make the drive themselves, and it's not that far. So I think just not only obviously they have plenty of respect for the Army wrestling program and the other schools that go to that event every year, but I think travel wise and location wise, it makes a lot of sense as well, which is why you see Penn State typically going back to it over the last couple of years.
Gotcha. So then after that, Lehigh, another one, Bethlehem, PA, also not too far away.
Right, yeah. So Penn State going back to the PP&L Center to face Lehigh. They have been there before. I think they set some kind of a record, T. Frank, for the attendance the last time Penn State and Lehigh were there. So if you don't have a ticket yet, I don't even know if they're on sale. I assume they're on sale, but look into that now, and preferably yesterday, because those will go quickly. Yeah. That duel is going to be at 2 p.m. on Sunday, December 8th. Again, no TV info out yet. If it was going to be on TV, we'll have to wait and see. Following weekend, Sunday, December 15th, Penn State welcomes Wyoming to Rec Hall. That's a 1 p.m. Duel, and those two programs will be meeting for the first time. Wyoming, of course, in the Big 12. Jor Volk coming here, the talented, extremely talented 125-pounder for what could quite honestly be one of the matches of, I don't want to get too far ahead of us and say matches of the season, but matches of the 2024 portion of the season, yeah. Assuming Luke Littledahl starts at 125 for Penn State, that has the potential to be a fantastic match at Rec Hall. So interesting to see Penn State get Wyoming on the schedule. They have some other very talented guys as well. So we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, Luke Liddell is going to have to come in and win the starting job for Penn State to find himself in the potential running to be in that match. So we'll see there. But finally, the end of the 2024 portion of the schedule, T. Frank, it includes a trip for Penn State to the Collegiate Wrestling Duals. They will wrestle Binghamton, Arkansas Little Rock, and Missouri over 3 matches. The first one starts at 3, second one's at 5, last one's at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, all on Sunday, December 22nd in Nashville. It's going to be fun. Binghamton they'll run over, of course, and Penn State may end up with a wide margin of victory over Little Rock and Missouri. But there are some good matches set to be on that card when those two, and especially when they wrestle Little Rock and they wrestle Missouri. There are going to be some really good matches Penn State fans are going to want to check out. College wrestling fans are going to want to check out. So exciting that Penn State is going back to that event. They've been there before, not since it's moved to Nashville, but certainly they're going to get plenty of challenges when they take on those 3 schools to close out really what is the final tune-up before Big Ten wrestling begins.
Yeah, and that was kind of going to be my question about this non-conference 2024 portion of the schedule. The most competition they'll see is in the wrestling room at Penn State. The best competition that they'll face maybe all year will be inside the wrestling room at Penn State. But do you feel like they are setting themselves up for success? Do you think that this is a good test for them heading into the Big Ten schedule, which then starts in January?
Yeah, so what I like about this schedule, T. Frank, is we've seen it over the last couple of years. Penn State obviously is going to go into the Drexel match with a plan for most of its weights, but there's still probably going to be some competition, and I think mainly 197 comes to mind, but also 133, possibly 125. So there is going to be a chance if Cael Sanderson wants to, and history tells us he will want to, for Penn State to let these competitions play out on the mat against actual opponents. So, clearly they'll have the data and the results from who beats who in the wrestling room at Lorenzo Wrestling Complex and things like that. But sometimes, as we hear James Franklin talk about plenty in football, especially when it comes to kickers, you don't necessarily always know you don't know what you have on game day, so to speak, or match day until they get out there and do it. So interested to see how that plays out. But I think this early schedule for Penn State provides a lot of different challenges at a lot of different weights to get guys ready to go for obviously what is Penn State's main goal every year, and that is to win regular season, win Big Tens, and then win at nationals. So I'd like the schedule this year for sure.
So just to kind of say what you're not saying is we're going to have a lot of conversations through Christmas about, hey, who's starting? Have you made a decision at X? What are the, those are the questions we're going to be getting all the way until Michigan State, which is the next meet, right?
Yeah, so Penn State will get into. Sorry, I'm having some computer issues here. The Big Ten portion of its schedule, when the Nittany Lions, move into the 2025 portion of it, and welcome Michigan State to State College on January 10th. Later in that month, Penn State goes to Nebraska, and then we'll also go to Rutgers, and then we have our first Bryce Jordan Center match. So let's have that conversation now, T. Frank. Penn State will have 2 Bryce Jordan Center matches this year. It will be Iowa at the BJC on January 31st, and then Michigan at the BJC on February 7th. So back-to-back Friday night BJC duels for Penn State. We talked a good amount this offseason about who Penn State could pick for this, trip to Bryce Jordan Center from Rec Hall, if they would do 1 or 2. They've talked about that in the past. I mean, I think more often than not moving forward, 2 probably makes sense just from a financial perspective. If you can get 16,000 in instead of 6, and you almost certainly can for both Michigan and Iowa, why wouldn't you do that? So it depends on how the Big Ten schedule shakes out and things like that. But I think that in more years than not, we'll probably see Penn State go this to Bryce Jordan Center dual meet route. I think it just makes a lot of sense from a number of different perspectives. So answering the next question everyone has, no ticket information has not yet been released. I'm sure that will be soon, but that information is not yet out. And, of course, like I said, start time and TV info not yet out from the Big Ten either. So do you think it is meaningful in any way that they're back-to-back in terms of impact
of having two individual ones. If you had one to start and one to end, or if they were broken up by a road contest in some sort of way, it seems unimportant because Penn State's going to sell these out. But at the same time, like if that were to continue to happen, or then this leads into the conversation of having all of them at the Bryce Jordan Center. I'm not trying to get into those conversations. I'm just curious what you think of having them weekend and then the next weekend. Do you think that affects anything in terms of interest or intrigue?
No, because there's so many Penn State wrestling fans out there who will get shut out from the first one that will just then eye the second one. So no, but I will say this. I mean, it's not like Penn State football fans just did it 4 out of 5 weekends making the drive to State College, or 3 out of 4, whatever. Yeah, 3 out of 4 weekends, I guess it was. But I don't know.
But this would be like having back-to-back whiteouts, and that was always the thing. Is there's part of this conversation of you can only have one whiteout to make it special, and then you have back-to-back whiteouts in terms of going to the Bryce Jordan Center. And I agree with you. I'm just asking the question, which is also sometimes like, is it though? Is it a good question?
No, Greg? It's a fair question because, I think a lot of Penn State fans would probably prefer this be on Saturday, the two BJC matches. As we all know, State College is not always the quickest place to get to, especially if you're a short time in terms of maybe working till 3 or 4 or even 5 o'clock and then trying to get on the road to get into town. It's not always the easiest place to get to the parking lot once you're even in town. So I'm assuming a lot of fans wish this was on a Saturday. And so that may be the one thing I would note is that doing it 2 weeks in a row, there's obviously some challenges in terms of people maybe not being able to because of work, things like that, because again, it's a Friday, not a Saturday. But on the other hand, it's Penn State, Iowa, and Penn State, Michigan. So there will be enough people who can make their schedule work, T. Frank, to ensure that they will be there for that match. So it'll be 2 sellouts. It was the right opponents to pick. Again, I'm sure some Penn State fans would love for this to be on Saturday. I can't help but to wonder if there's some TV driving this. One thing that unfortunately has not really come up yet in terms of times either Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti has talked or executives from the Big Ten Network, is how does the addition of more basketball teams, for example, impact the Big Ten Network programming schedule? Are more matches going to end up on BTN Plus, which is the streaming arm of the Big Ten Network, or are wrestling matches going to be part of these double headers that we've seen in the past where they used to be in most cases they were a wrestling match then a wrestling match. Sometimes it was one of the school's basketball teams on the road and then the wrestling team competed against somebody else at home.
They like to build a weekend of sports where they will have like the Big Ten Kickoff Classic for basketball around the Big Ten Championship game to get everyone excited about sport and then kind of kick into the next season.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see once the TV, and we'll know this, we'll have this answer once the TV stuff comes out and we can discuss it in more detail then. But that did make me wonder what the plan is for TV this year because you do have more basketball games. You have different time zones now. Like, keep in mind that wrestling doubleheader in most years, what was it, like 6 and 9 Eastern time, I think? Obviously, you don't have any wrestling schools in the Pacific time zone, but now you got new basketball schools in the Pacific time zone. So are they going to move wrestling off BTN in that 9 p.m. slot for a 6 p.m. local time Pacific basketball game? We'll have to wait and see. But I guess I would caution, this is not the question you were asking, but we are way into the weeds now, so we might as well keep climbing.
Let's do it.
I think Penn State fans might be a little bit frustrated when that TV schedule finally does come out with the number of streaming matches there are. I could be wrong, and I hope I am, because it's much easier for me to flip on the TV, of course, like it is for many people, as opposed to trying to get BTM Plus on the TV and all that kind of good stuff. But I do get the sense that there's probably going to be more streaming in the college wrestling's future, at least at the Big Ten level this year. Like I said, could certainly be wrong. Time will tell, but just maybe start bracing for that, and hopefully you get better results than what I'm suggesting right now.
Yeah. Okay. So last couple minutes here. Let's get through the end of the schedule, getting through February. You got Maryland. What else is on the schedule with Maryland and beyond?
Yeah, so Penn State will host Maryland on February 9. That is one of 2 double dual weekends in the month of February for Penn State. So they have Michigan and Maryland back-to-back on a Friday and Saturday, and then after going to Ohio State on February 17, they will go to Illinois on February 16. So back-to-back double dual weekends for Penn State. Those don't feel as common as they used to, T. Frank.
They were
Penn State has Yeah, Penn State only has 2 this year. Most Big Ten schools only have 2 this year. Michigan State is the outlier. They have 4 double dual weekends, which is all of them, I think. But anyway, kind of interesting there. I don't know why that. I don't know if there's a reason that maybe schools are going away from them or the Big Ten's going away from them. Certainly not as many as there used to be. But that was really kind of the big takeaway for me. One of the takeaways, anyway, after the BJC stuff, which was the obvious big talking point. The second one was just not as many double dual weekends. So certainly, I think that Penn State fans will enjoy February when the Lions go Friday, Sunday at home, and then Friday, Sunday on the road. That Penn State Ohio State match should be great. And as we reported, back in July, I think it was, Penn State will close the season with that annual non-conference tune-up dual meet with hosting
Senior
American.
Day.
Yes, Senior Day, and they will host American at Rec Hall on Friday, February 21st. Yeah, that's the other thing that really jumped out at me. Not a lot of Sundays on this schedule, T. Frank. A lot of Fridays. Yeah. More Sundays in the first half of the year, not a lot of Sundays in the second half of the year.
So if you want to check out the full schedule, Greg has a breakdown over at bluewhiteillustrated.com. And if you want to just see the schedule, go psusports.com, obviously, is a place to go for that. Although I bet Greg has a breakdown and schedule, so you can just look at it that way too. The Super 32 this weekend. Let's talk about that. Let's give a preview of what's going on this weekend with some of the Penn State commits that are in the Super 32.
Yeah, so we're recording this in the middle of the week of October 9. So I wanted to spend a little bit more time on the Super 32, a very prestigious high school wrestling event. I'm sure everyone that's listening is aware of, but if not, one of the best events of the quote-unquote off-season for high school wrestling. But there's a lot of stuff still changing with seating and entries and things like that, so I don't want to get too far into the weeds. I will have something up over at bluewhiteillustrated.com before that event starts this weekend. But for now, William Henkel might be in, might not be in. He was not on the initial list of pre-seeds, but Flo had him listed as entering, so waiting to kind of figure that out there. He's a Penn State commit, of course. Nate Desmond, class of 2025, is in. Asher Cunningham, class of 2025, is in. Those guys wrestle at 126 and 165 pounds, respectively, or at least that's where they were listed as of October 9. And then Dalton Perry, another Penn State commit, in at 138. So, main takeaway here, obviously, some Penn State recruiting targets who are not committed will be at this event. And, of course, there's be a handful of Penn State guys as well, whether the list I just read off gets added to or maybe subtracted from. Just going to have to wait and see. Like I said, we'll have more over at bluewhiteillustrated.com on the specifics as the event gets closer. But it's just another good reminder. Wrestling season is almost back. It's 30 some odd days until the Penn State season begins. Mm-hmm. Obviously, high schools are gearing up to get rolling as well. So it's an exciting time, T. Frank, and we'll keep covering it all over at bluewhiteillustrated.com and here on the YouTube channel, wherever you get your audio. But yeah, I was happy that finally have a schedule now, can lock in some dates, set some things up, and see, what Penn State, we continue to get more pieces to the puzzle of what Penn State wrestling will look like in 2024, 2025 as it aims to defend its NCAA championship with, of course, multiple individual champions back. So schedule just the latest piece of that.
Greg Pickel, always doing an awesome job and pulling double duty at this time of the year. By the time you're watching this or listening to this, he is in the air or maybe landed in Los Angeles to cover Penn State football, going to play USC this weekend. So he's still on the grind and on the beat of the Penn State wrestling show, but also doing all that stuff. And our guys do a great job of that. You and Nate Bauer, when you cover wrestling and basketball and all of the other important sports, Penn State fans, we appreciate that coverage. So thank you. And we'll be back next week with the Penn State wrestling show. Once again, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe on our YouTube channel. If you are a podcast listener, please subscribe to our podcast so that we can keep doing this and growing more and more and more. And by the way, check out our other stuff if you haven't yet. We do a lot of Penn State football content and a lot of other things here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel and bluewhiteillustrated.com. We'll be back.